Last week, Blanche and I were getting ready to get in the car to go to the airport to fly to LA when I got a email that a cousin of mine had died in Detroit. He had had Parkinson's and had been ill for a long time, but strangely the death was still unexpected for me. And we aborted our trip to LA, and Blanche made arrangements to fly to Detroit instead. And it was a very powerful trip. In many ways, I think it caused a sort of internal shift. Hard to describe, but I'm going to try to articulate some of it. I would try to define, I think, the entire time I was there, the entire journey, as a kind of journey into what I would call goodness. A kind of overwhelmingly beautiful goodness in human experience and human life. And it started on the plane. Blanche and I were on aisle seats, that's all we could get, and another couple sat down that were divided from each other. And a man with a window seat offered his seat to sit in the middle between me and somebody else so this husband could be with his wife. And I thought, that was really nice. That was really just a nice, selfless thing to do. So simple. And then he and I started talking, and we talked for almost 4 hours. And I have to say he's one of the nicest people I ever met. Not in a pantheon of nice, but just really good human being. Simple life, had 3 boys, and his favorite thing in life was Disney World. And they owned a timeshare or something at Disney World, and they would go 2 times a year and bring the family, and knew everything about Disney World and Disneyland, more than I ever imagined anybody could know. But the love that he was expressing for Disney World was so sweet and so grounded in joy, really, just joy. And he shared it with his family over and over and over and over, and never tired of it. And it was kind of fantasy land on some level, and Tomorrowland and Frontierland and all the other lands. And he went on to describe Epcot Center, and they have a lot of new worlds at Disney World, but they're all part of some idealized version of human experience. And he just loved it. And I just took it on. I just went, yeah. I mean, I really want to go to Disney World again now because I hadn't needed to. But it just set me up for what was about to come, which was my brother joined us in Detroit. My brother's a big Detroiter. He always regrets that he left Detroit. And as we would drive down the streets of Detroit, he would remember this used to be there and that wasn't there and this should be there. And he has a very real fascination with past tense. And I have a real disinterest in past tense. I left Detroit and truly left it a long time ago. So being back there was kind of like ghostly. It was like haunting on some level. Like here I am back in the place I came from, but I had so little sense of my rootedness there. The only people who stayed in Detroit were my cousin and his wife, who passed away. His wife was my direct cousin. He was my cousin-in-law, I guess. His name is Billy Krasnick, and she's Margie. Billy and Margie had 3 boys, and each of those boys had 3 children, and they all lived within, I believe, a 5-mile radius of each other. And they are one of the most engaged, loving, happy families I have ever witnessed. And this is from the outside. I'm not there day to day. I don't know the stuff that goes on, in the internal dramas, but from the outside, looking in, they were what life is about. What idealized life would be if we all lived with our families and loved our families and gathered together with the families and shared time, and the cousins were like bonded in so deeply. And my cousin Billy had been a pharmacist. His father before him had been a pharmacist, and they owned a pharmacy that has since been sold to CVS or something. But they had this pharmacy on Woodward Avenue in Detroit for almost a century. And everybody knew Billy. Everybody came to the pharmacy. In a way, his life was just as close as you get to the movie It's a Wonderful Life as I have ever seen. Everybody loved him. And they would come into the into the pharmacy to buy toothpaste, but really to see Billy. They would always want to buy something just for a reason to be there. And at his funeral, there were over 1,000 people lined up and lined up and lined up, surrounding the whole funeral parlor. And it was like they didn't have room for everybody. And the eulogy that was given by his boys and the oldest of his grandchildren, with all the others standing behind him, was of a life of simple kindness. People just good to one another. It was not spiritually evolved. It was not an awakened, enlightened consciousness. It was just a really good life, a wonderful life. And all the words about him were so terrific, and there were so many simple sort of ideas being expressed. But at one point somebody asked, how many people here, this was at the evening gathering, how many people here worked in the pharmacy? And all these hands went up. All the grandchildren, all the children, all these other people raised their hands. They had all worked there, mostly sweeping the floor, putting out, carrying stuff, lugging stuff around, but they all were living knowing the value of work, knowing the value of sharing something that was a gathering space for people in the community. And what I kept feeling was what it meant to stay in your hometown, not to have had wanderlust, not to have this feeling of I need to be somewhere else, because everyone I knew had left Detroit except this family. And a part of me felt, what would have happened if I had stayed in Detroit? Would I have had all this? And the answer for me was no, because that was not my soil. My soil turned out in a funny way to be LA. I never imagined it exactly, but that's where the roots took off. Everywhere else the universe put me before that, no, it wouldn't root. I couldn't get through the rock. But LA, it just happened. Detroit was their soil. Their soil. And I felt such joy in their presence. The image I take away from it was one of the rooms in my cousin Margie's house, which is one of the best houses anywhere, ever. She's an artist, and she collects people's art, and their children make art, and it's everywhere, and there's beautiful things to look at. But one of the most beautiful things is they have this one family room and a big, big couch. And I walked in, and there were about 6 of the cousins sleeping on top of one another, connected, lying together, because they were all exhausted, of course, and they were just entwined. And I just looked at it, and I went, yes, yes. This is what ideal life looks like. Again, they are not awakened. I don't know that they have a spiritual bone in their bodies, but they have the very thing that the universe can give, which is joyful being. Being. Somebody once said to me that all the students studying this practice were the black sheep of their family. And you may or may not relate to that. But we were the ones who didn't fit in, for one reason or another. We did not cohere in the family. We always felt somehow the need to branch out. I knew from the minute I was aware that I was in Detroit that I was born in the wrong city. That the stork, I always say, was flying to New York and it dropped me right in the middle of Detroit, and I always felt, I got to get out of here. And the minute I was of age, that's what I did. I left. I left Detroit, moved to New York, and began a long journey. These were the cousins who stayed. And I sat there full of emotion, full of some jealousy that I didn't get that cohesion exactly. But in fact, it's not totally true because I've had the most also wonderful life. But I understood what it meant to be satisfied. I got a sense of that there was a satisfaction there that was overwhelming, that family explained them, that love and kindness explained them, and that heaven on earth was their purview. And it was interesting because the very week that Cousin Billy died, two of the son's daughters' fathers died, all within a week. There were 3 major deaths within that 1 week. And so what was being expressed in that environment was an appreciation for being alive and for being here and for still having what would appear to be meaning and value and connectivity. So I tell you all this. Those of you who had terrible family lives are going, oh God, what was wrong with my life, and I should have had this. No. No. Let me say something. I think it's important. There's a difference between having a wonderful life and being awake to having a wonderful life. And the way to become awake to a wonderful life, in a way, is to lose that life. The door to awareness and awakeness is rarely through having. It is very often through losing and not having. And as much as I love these people, and I do, and as much as I admire the life I imagine that they have, because trust me, I may be completely wrong in my judgment here, but as much as I can tell, the one missing factor is true knowing of how lucky and how extraordinarily beautiful their lives are. I'm not saying that they should go through suffering, or nor am I wishing that on them. But I do know that when you lose that perfection in your life, the journey of spiritual awakening begins. And it's a hard road. And my wish would be that I could walk into the middle of that group and just say, wake up to the amazing nature of what you already are. That's the thing I most want to be able to do as a person, as a cousin, as a teacher, is to go, you have it. You are it. You are in it. You are of it. But the journey from being that to knowing you are that is a huge, huge ride. It's a huge ride. And you won't end up anywhere other than where they are. That's the weird thing. When you're finally awake and truly embracing the world, you will understand that the world is that family for you. The whole world is that family. None of us here are related, but I feel the same unbelievable joy in my connection with everybody in this room that I felt in that room, only it's intensified by that experience. Today was so beautiful because I just got how much I love you guys. I love you guys. I cannot tell you. I almost felt that if my full capacity for loving you got unleashed in this room, nobody would survive it. It's an annihilating quality. it blows away the person. It's just loving the being, which is just what we or I am. We are, I am. The journey for all of us, and it's been said from time immemorial, the journey is to arrive at where you've always been. To see it for the first time, as T.S. Eliot says. To see it for the first time, as though you see it for the first time. And you watch everybody on their journey, and all I want, is for people to see what they're looking at. See this. Here's the incredible part. I don't know how to explain it because nothing about it makes sense or will register. But you are not the thing seeing life. You are life being seen. You are what you're looking at. You are the universe that you inhabit. And I don't mean that in an abstract way. I mean it as an absolute. Your life is you. Your entire life is you. And that's what you are. And it is beyond grasping on any level. It just is. The thing that is mistaken is that you are in life. You are life, and you are your life. Your very specific, particular life is yours. And if you can stop judging it, fighting it, disagreeing with it, wishing it were different, if you could just stop all that stuff, just for a little bit, just stop and really look at it. Funerals are a great time to do that. You actually realize in a very funny, almost subliminal way, you love your life. You really love it, even if you hate it. You love it. You wouldn't trade it. Your life is a gift. It is such a gift, and you are so lucky and blessed to have it. But not knowing that you're lucky and blessed is a sad way to live. It is unfulfilling. It is to be at war with what is, to be at war with your life, when in fact you love your life. What you might want is that it be a little different than it's playing out. You may wish that you had had more achievement in your life, that you had more fulfillment in your life. That's a real problem, because one of the things that holds people back from loving their life is that they wanted it to be different than it is. Or it didn't give them as much as they wanted. And I can only tell you, often life will not give you as much as you want. But if you haven't really tried to work to get it, the regret will be not that you didn't get it, but that you didn't try to get it. That you didn't try enough, that you were too afraid to do it, that you were too held back, that you were too convinced that you would fail, whatever these things are. And here's the thing about this particular teaching, and I've been very aware over the last, since this awakening took place, that this teaching is so important in making it possible for you to finally go yes to your life. It's so important because it gives you a mechanism for transforming yourself, for accepting what you can't change, for having the energy to make change, to give yourself an opportunity to have a wonderful life. The great thing about Rudy's teaching was that it created what he called muscle, spiritual muscle. The ability to get inside and do the work, to see what obstructed you from the work, in a very simple sense, to see if your ego-minded throat chakra wasn't allowing you to speak your truth, if your heart chakra wasn't loving you and just everybody else, if your gut navel chakra was basically dwarfed and feeling, I can't do, I'll never do, I don't know how to do. Forget that. The thing about Rudy's teaching is it goes deep into these spaces and it empowers them to give you the capacity to live and have the life you want. When you get the life you want, then something remarkable happens. You can let it go. You can let it go because you had it. You can let it go because as much as you know it's wonderful and beautiful, it is only a taste of the infinite life that you truly represent. But the doorway to infinity is through you. The doorway to what you want is through you. If you don't like yourself, if you don't respect yourself, if you don't care about yourself, if you don't care about others, that doorway will not open. And you'll be stuck in this idea of who you are that has nothing to do with who you are. Who you are is so beyond all this. It's so vast. So the idea of working to make yourself the person you would like to be, or at least the person you tried to be, gives you an opportunity to actually have this life that you can surrender into infinite awareness. Not that awakening doesn't take place for people who are not in that relationship to themselves. Many people awaken in very desperate spaces. They awaken in times of great sorrow. They awaken to not loving their life or not wanting to be here. And suddenly this happens. And trust me, that's wonderful. Awakening to what is a gift. Awakening to what is liberation. But I would encourage you to know that once you're awake, you're still here. And what do you do with that? I still think it's worth having a wonderful life. A good, kind-hearted, loving life. I think it's worth it. People who awaken and walk away from their lives, I think, have gotten the wrong message. But I don't want to speak for them because I don't know. But for me, what's been happening and what I'm trying to share with all of you is an unbelievable good fortune. This good fortune of loving my life. This good fortune of being surrounded by people I love. This good fortune of knowing goodness and wonderfulness when I see it. Somebody wrote me a letter the other day, an old friend, and said I had a charmed life. And I thought about it and I said, yeah. But I have to say, the charm has two aspects. One is maybe it was given on some level, but either if I hadn't met it with the level of work and commitment and demand and daily passion for what Rudy called the work of, I call it the work of being present. If I hadn't done that, I don't know what would have taken place. I don't know. I was very assisted by the universe. And I've said this a lot, and I will say it again. Part of the Rudy exercise is asking for help to surrender. This idea of help is so fascinating because where does help come from? Where does it come from? When you ask for help, who are you talking to? And my statement has been for a very long time, help comes from, if you will, God, the universe, the infinite sense of being. It comes, and I have this theory that the entire universe exists to help us. That's why it exists. It exists for us. We're not in the universe is us. And it wants one thing, and it happened in Detroit, which is the creation of a really wonderful life of deep goodness and kindness and sharing and family and joy. If you don't have that stuff, don't despair. Don't despair for a lot of reasons. One, you can have a wonderful life built on friendships. You can have a wonderful life sitting in a mountain cave. You can have a wonderful life in so many different forms, but you have to discover, you don't have to, but it's nice to discover that it's wonderful, that it is what you want, that it's your life. It's your life. And if you don't like it, do something about it. Take this energy, this practice that I've given each of you, do this exercise, this breathing exercise, open your chakras, find out if your mind is working with your heart and your heart's working with your gut and your throat chakra is expressing your real need and love. Watch all this, see if it's all working, and watch what it does for you. It really recreates you. You do it in alignment with something vast that is trying to get through and make it all work. When I sit with you and I look at you, I see the little places in you that are going, not so much. No, I don't think so. Nah, no, I don't want that. No way. It's in every one of you, trust me. And it's all buried in ways that you don't get to see it very rapidly or very clearly because who wants to see that stuff in themselves? But when you sit with me, when you sit here, the self sees itself. It just sees it, and it sees where the bullshit is, and it just goes in and it just sweeps it and takes it out and drops it in the garbage. That's what it does. It just cleans it up for you. That's the whole thing. It's a help. I am a help. When you say, please help me, this is help. One form of help. But trust me, you can ask the guy bagging your groceries, help me to the car, please. That's help. You can ask for help everywhere. Everywhere. Why don't we ask for help? Well, you know the answers to that. You each have your own answers why I don't ask for help. I'm saying ask for help and be amazed at how much help is available. How much the universe is there for you. And I would go on to say, it's not only there for you, it is you. That's the message. If I can get that message across, that you are that which you see, that which you smell, that which you taste, that which you know. This is you. You are staring at the infinite, endlessly glorious reality that you are. And if you miss that, that's because you choose, or you forget who you are, but you choose not to know. It's the simplest thing ever. Just get rid of this veil that separates you from everything else. This stupid veil of me, mine, I. And I can't say you can actually rip it apart because that doesn't work so much. But what happens in spiritual work is you practice a little bit at a time, letting go of one of the veils or getting a little penetration through some of the fabric, and you start to see the clarity, and you let go of stuff. You let go of resentments, you let go of tensions, you let go of old memories, you let go of old patterns. These things start to fall away, and then at some point when there's maybe one microscopic veil between you and truth, something goes, and there you are, one with all there is, one with everything that you have always been, but have been clouded from seeing for whatever reason. All I want to do is help you get rid of that veil and know something so simple. And it's, in a way, I think, if you could just know it without having to spend years and years of spiritual practice, that would be great. If I could just go and wipe that stuff away, and you would look outside and go, I'm looking at myself. I am that. I am those hills. I am that traffic. I am the rainstorm. I am the drought. I am the TV. I am all the shows I watch. I am the music I listened to when I was 10 years old. I am that. That's what my life is. My life is all that stuff. Rodgers and Hammerstein for me. I am Rodgers and Hammerstein. I am Shakespeare. I I am every one of you. I am everything that is, that I am aware of. That is my life. That's the very substance of my life. The stuff I know, have felt and touched and hated and loved and dreamed of and rejected. I am all that, and so are you. That's all you are. You're the story of your life, and you're beyond the story. And when the story goes away, you realize that you're the blades of grass and the palm trees, if there's a palm tree, and the sky and the moon. That is what and who you are. That's all the message that is to be conveyed. And you can say it 1,000 times. You can say it over and over. But it's not to hear it and go, yeah, that's interesting. It's to know it. To know it. To go. And it kind of brings you to tears. And you begin to be so grateful for acts of kindness, goodness, having somebody sit next to you on the plane and talking for 4 hours about Disney World. You start to feel what it means to be with family at a funeral that you've known since you were this big. You start to know what connectivity to others means. You start to know what a wonderful life is, and you realize in some funny way you have a wonderful life. And that, again, accept it or reject it, good or bad, awful stuff and beautiful stuff, it's all essential. It's essential to what you are. You can't build a life of what you wished you could be or what you should have been or what you might have been. You build a life of what you are, and it is, when you sit in it in the present tense, you get rid of the thoughts about the past and all the future dreams. You just take what is right now. It's wonderful. It's truly wonderful. It's good. It's really good. That's what you need to wake up to what this is now. Any questions?
Were you brought to tears at the funeral?
Were
you brought to tears at the funeral?
Yeah. Whenever I walk into a funeral parlor, I walk in the door and it starts.
Because I remember you said you didn't cry for a while.
Oh, I'm not a good crier.
Okay.
I'm not a good crier. But recently, in the last year, I've been really emotional. I watched the end of Downton Abbey the other day. I could barely breathe. I was
That's wonderful.
Well, I'm very in touch with all of that stuff that's going on. Every story, all the stories, what people go through. It's one of the things ultimately about awakening is that you begin to feel that God is our tears, if you will. That God roots for us, prays for us, loves us, cries with us, and that we are that. I use the word God. That's hard for some people, but I'm whatever you want to call God. To me, it's what is, the great what is. I think it's not indifferent on any level. I think it is as passionately involved with us as one could possibly imagine, and I'm in touch with that, and that I am that. So are you.
Do you have a Huggy Rudy birthday story for us? This one that stands out?
We got a cake downstairs. It's a princess cake, which Rudy loved. Per Johansson used to bring them. They were Norwegian, and he introduced them to the ashram, and we get them every year. Rudy is why I'm sitting here. That's all I can tell you. Some people have told me, Bruce, you don't need to talk about Rudy. He's not our teacher, he's your teacher. That you can put Rudy aside. This is your teaching now. Yeah, I hear that, and part of me respects that idea. But Rudy's my teacher. That's where I came from. It's my root system, and so I share it. I don't expect a lot of you new guys to come in here and go, "Oh, Rudy, Rudy." You know, you don't know Rudy, but Rudy is an unbelievable energy source that appeared in the 1960s. I don't know how he appeared in New York City. There were very few people like him, very few people teaching. The few who were you know, swamis and people dressed like teachers. Rudy was just a guy who ran an art gallery that sold Oriental art. But he taught me this thing which I'm trying to teach all of you, which is get a whole life and then let go of it. You know, and I could talk about Rudy forever. And you know, I'm not sure he would like that, to be honest. You know, a lot of the times, holding on to a teacher kind of holds them back in a way from their own journey. I don't know if that's really true, but Rudy even said it. Let them go. Let them go. You know, I love Rudy. He knows I love him. Onward. Anything else? Okay, well, what we're going to do, as soon as we leave here, we'll go downstairs. Those of you who are leaving, if you can hang out for a few minutes, we'll just gather downstairs, sing happy birthday. I just like to do that every Rudy's birthday. And we can all share some cake. I won't be back. I'm going away. I'm going to Australia for a bit, and then I'm going to Los Angeles for Rudy's Samadhi, which is on the 21st of February, the day he died. It was his 45th year, and it was 1 month into that year. And I celebrate that every year, and this year I will celebrate it in Los Angeles, and I will not be here. Those of you who knew Rudy and cared, you know, you might want to do something on that day, you know, just sit down and say thank you, or, you know, light a candle, or whatever you like to do, just to express gratitude, because this lineage does come through that. But I will be back the weekend after that, which I think is the 28th. So you've got like a month now with no classes. My experience when that happens is the pattern falls away and people fall away with the pattern. So those of you who are grounded now, I'll see you on the 28th. Those of you who are still not sure, I may not see you. If I don't see you, just know that you've blessed this class, those of you who've arrived here, that you have been a huge part of what is an evolving teaching, and I'm grateful for anyone who has passed through. So thank you all very much.